It was interesting trying to put together music for the service today as we're wrapping up a series on Frank Ostaseski's book, The 5 Invitations, because the last invitation is Cultivate Don't Know Mind. Cultivate Don't Know Mind. Say that with me. Cultivate Don't Know Mind. It really fits with what Nicole was just singing to us. We always know what we need to know when we need to know it, which is not necessarily on our terms or in our time. And that's where trust, I think, really comes into place. If you're joining us for the first time in the last several weeks, we have been studying the book, The 5 Invitations, and Frank Ostaseski is the co-founder of the Zen Hospice Project outside of San Francisco. And this book is a result of things he has learned sitting at the bedside of hospice patients. We began our journey with the very first invitation. Do you remember what that invitation was? No, you don't remember? Don't wait. Don't wait. Don't wait. And it was an encouragement to us to seize the moment, to not put off the things that are ours to do, or the conversations that are ours to have, or the forgiveness work that is ours to do until it might be too late. So the first invitation was don't wait. Do I dare ask if you remember what the second invitation was? Welcome everything. And what was the other part of it? Welcome everything. Push nothing away. Welcome everything. Push nothing away. And of course, that's easy to do when we like what it is that is happening around us, and it takes some discipline and I think spiritual maturity to be able to welcome everything, push nothing away. What it means is to be able to be hospitable to the full range of feelings and experiences that we're having. To realize that when we resist or when we grasp and try to hold on to something, we will lose our peace in the process of doing that. The third invitation is the invitation to bring our whole self into the experience. Whenever I say that, I think of that cute little song, the Hokey Pokey, put your whole self in, right? To bring our whole self into the experience, which is to get comfortable in our own skin, to grow up enough to be authentically ourselves. We still have work to do, I'm sure, and growth to do, but we don't hide. We allow ourselves to be who we are. We allow ourselves to be seen, especially to those that we are close to or want to be close to, because it's only when we are really seen in our authenticity that another can truly love us, and that we can actually feel that love, that it can actually come into our experience. In the last week, the invitation was to find a place of rest in the middle of things. And that was an invitation to us to realize that we don't want to put off this idea of rest and renewal and rejuvenation until we feel like everything that needs to get done is done. Because if we do that, we'll probably find that we never get to that place of being able to experience that sense of rest or renewal or rejuvenation. And so it is the knowingness that even in the midst of a lot that is going on, we can pause, we can take a breather, we can find a sacred space of rest in the middle of whatever it is happening. And when we find that sacred place of rest, when we can dwell there even momentarily, it is a pivot point for us, a place of being able to shift into a better response to whatever is happening around us. And today, the invitation is to cultivate Don't Know Mind. And in our culture, that might be difficult to do. We tend to so value the reasoning mind that this idea of getting more comfortable with or cultivating, recognizing the value of the don't know mind might seem like a really odd thing or something that we completely want to avoid. To kind of demonstrate this, I put pieces of paper on the tables in front of you, and those of you in the front row might have to reach back. But I want to encourage you, take out the piece of paper, and there should be pencils in front of you, and just do something that we all know how to do. and that is write your name. Just really quickly, write your name. And these are not being turned in, so it's not like a test or anything like that. And those of you at home, grab a piece of paper, write your name. And now what I want you to do is take your non-dominant hand and write your name. That was my reaction too. Some of you are ambidextrous, and that's wonderful, but I imagine that most of us in this room are not. So, non-dominant hand, write your name. Non-dominant. So if you're right-handed, you're going to write with your left hand. If you're left-handed, you're going to write your name with your right hand. So your non-dominant hand. Was that at all different? Yes. Which one was easier? The first one, your dominant one. Why? Because you know how to do that, right? You've been doing it probably since what, Emery's kindergarten, you start writing your name or something? So you've been doing it for a long time. How long have you been trying to write with your non-dominant hand? A couple of minutes maybe, right? One feels much more natural. The other feels odd, uncomfortable, probably a bit clunky, right? And most of us, if we're honest, probably prefer when things feel easy and known and familiar. But when they're not familiar, when we don't quite know how to do it, it can feel uncomfortable. And yet this idea of don't know mind is an important spiritual way to approach our life. These 5 invitations that Frank gives us aren't really like separate things that we do. It's kind of 5 different ways to look into the laboratory of our lives, 5 different ways to live that one life we have with greater ease and with greater joy. But we have such a tendency, at least I know I do, to really value the reasoning mind. When I've taken employee-type psychological tests, when I was in my interview process for serving on the board for Unity World Headquarters, there was a whole battery of testing that all of the board members undergo. And it was not just personality, but actually our preferred way of being and interacting. And I come up so high on analytical. That part of my mind is just so very, very, very developed. And so for myself and for those of us that tend to live in our minds, and that can be a good thing. I think we want people who are smart and who can think through things. But that's not the only way of being. And if we overvalue that reasoning mind, we create very little opportunity for something new to come in. What is the saying? In the beginner's mind, there's infinite possibility. In the expert's mind, there are very few. Because the expert already knows all the reasons something can or can't work, whereas the beginner is doing what? Approaching it how? With freshness, with newness, with openness. Ostaseski writes in this chapter, ignorance is usually thought of as the absence of information, being unaware. Sadly, it is more than just not knowing. It means that we know something, but it is the wrong thing. Ignorance is misperception. Don't know mind represents something else entirely. It is beyond knowing and not knowing. Beyond knowing and not knowing. It is the beginner's mind Zen master Suzuki Roshi spoke of when he famously said, in the beginner's mind there are many possibilities, but in the expert's there are few. In the beginner's mind, there are many possibilities. In the expert's mind, there are few. It's why in corporate settings, in business settings, in family dynamics, it can be so helpful to have someone who doesn't have all of the experience, doesn't have all of the training, to be sitting at the table and involved in the conversation. Why? Because their mind is going to be more open because they're not already filled with everything that they have heard or read or learned. And so this idea of us becoming more comfortable cultivating a don't know mind is a way to remain more open to possibility, to new ideas, to new information. Don't know mind is free to discover. The don't know mind is free to discover. It's an invitation to enter life with fresh eyes, to empty our minds, to open our hearts. We all started out that way. Think of really young children, right? The don't know mind, the open mind, the mind that's willing to entertain all sorts of ideas and possibilities and solutions. One of the things that we can do is to just observe the kind of language that we tend to use, to observe how often we speak in very declarative and definitive statements. We make black and white statements. It will always be like this, or I just know that's going to happen, or he's never going to change, or I'm never going to change. Very definitive, closed, rigid kinds of statements, right? What about statements, though, that entertain possibility, curiosity? A number of months ago, as Unity World Headquarters and Unity Worldwide Ministries were attempting the impossible for historical reasons in our movement, but actually became successful in uniting these two separate arms of unity, these two separate nonprofit organizations of unity, there were a lot of feelings that came up among the ministers toward this idea of what we were calling unification, bringing Unity World Ministries, a much smaller organization, into and under and around Unity World Headquarters. The process had been tried 6 or 7 times before over a 60-year period. Not success, because you would think in Unity we were better. We're not perfect, but we try hard. And part of the process involved just training our field to not hold rigid thinking, to be able to listen to another point of view with a more open mind. And instead of jumping to defending or attacking, to move into the place of curiosity. We were taught and encouraged to approach things with, well, I wonder why they think the way that they think. I wonder what's behind that opinion. I'm curious, I'd like to know more. Do you think that shifted the conversations at all? Absolutely. Do you think that could work in our country a little bit? It would be wonderful, and guess who the country is? It's us. To be able to shift into that place of curiosity rather than judgment. If we believe one of our 5 basic unity principles, which is the inherent goodness or inherent divinity in every single person, then we ought to be able to realize that that means and to expect that each person is operating with the best of intention given what they know, their experiences, where they've been wounded, how they have been supported, how they have been hurt, to hold the highest and best in that individual, and then to be able to genuinely move into the place of an open mind that wonders, well, how did you get to think the way that you think? How did you get to form that opinion? Does that make sense? Would you say that that's necessarily easy to do? I don't think so, because if it were, I think we would be doing it. I think we would be doing it. And again, it is this idea of how challenging it can be for us to get comfortable with not knowing, to be able to admit, you know what, I don't know. I don't know. Have any of you grown up around or with people who, even if they didn't know the answer, they couldn't admit that they didn't know the answer? Raise your hand or nod your head if, right, they just couldn't say the words, I don't know. Say those words with me. I don't know. I don't know. I don't know. It's okay not to know. There are going to be times that we just don't know. I remember so vividly when our kids were little, when Jonathan and Jennifer were young and we were homeschooling them. And at that time, they're both in their 30s now, but at that time, homeschooling was not that common, and most people who homeschooled were doing so from a very fundamental, mainline, rigid Christian, what's the word I'm looking for? Mindset. And that, of course, was not John and myself. We wanted to help the kids, number one, retain a mind of curiosity. We wanted them to continue to have that open mind, to be curious about other people, other cultures, other ways of thinking, other ways of living, other ways of being a person. We wanted them to be open, to be receptive. But I remember so vividly how many times people would come through the receiving line and say to me, well, what are you going to do about the prom? Aren't you worried about socialization? What are you going to do when they need to learn calculus? And I would get so defensive. And inside everything would come up, and I'd think, I'm supposed to have an answer. And one day I blurted out and said, I don't know. But I think I have a little bit of time to figure it out, because they were only like in kindergarten and first grade. So those questions had no context, really. Does that make sense? Say with me, I don't know. I don't know. I don't know. Cultivating I don't know mind is not, this is going to sound like an oxymoron. Cultivating don't know mind does not mean you shut your mind off. It does not mean that you don't continue to try to understand or explore or to figure things out. But what it does mean is that you have enough spaciousness in the way you approach whatever it is you're trying to figure out, that you approach it with the beginner's mind. You allow something completely new to come in that you might never, ever, ever have thought of on your own if you thought you had to figure it out all from the front end. The mind is a funny thing. Have you noticed that? It's my mind's a funny thing. I don't know about your mind. I imagine we're more alike than we are different. The mind is a funny thing. The way we remember some things and the way we forget other things. And yet the mind is designed to do both of those things. Did you know that? It's designed to remember and it's designed to forget. I'm going to remember that the next time my husband remembers something and I'm going to say, my mind is doing exactly what it's supposed to be doing. I'm forgetting. Anyway, I digress here. So the mind is designed to do both of those things, to remember and to forget. Barbara Kingslover, an author and teacher, said, a memory is a complicated thing, a relative to the truth, but not its twin. And then in the book, Frank writes, our brains are not computer hard drives. Human memory is not a simple matter of accurate data in, accurate data out. It is a far more complicated, subtle, and beautiful process. Forgetfulness is actually built into the system. Memory has a use it or lose it quality. Brain scientists speak of memory transience, the way the brain gets rid of unused memories to make room for new ones. We are all cleaning out the closets of our brains on a regular basis. This means that memory is not objective. Boy, remembering that could save a lot of marriages and relationships from a lot of frustration and a lot of challenge. I see some of you nodding your head. This means that memory is not objective, truthful, exact, or by any means permanent. Our memories are malleable constructs. One study demonstrated that every time we remember something, our brain networks change in ways that alter our recall of the original event. Take that in for just a moment. That alter our recall of the original event. So what does that have to do with this cultivating don't know mind? I think it has to do with the idea of relaxing our thinking, of relaxing our mind, relaxing the way we look at the stories of our own life. Relaxing the way we look at the stories of our own life. Every single one of us in this room online have stories, historical stories, personal stories of our lives that run, if not in the foreground, are definitely running in the background. And so cultivating this don't know mind includes a conscious practice of relaxing some of the stories we keep telling ourselves about our past, about what happened. We can't change what happened, but we can certainly soften, relax, change what we keep telling ourselves about it. Byron Katie, her body of work called The Work, made a statement that really stuck with me the first time I read it and the first time I heard it. And it was the idea that the most important relationship we will ever have in our life is not the relationship we have with a loved one or our thought or feelings about the divine. It is a relationship we have with our thoughts, the relationship we have with our thinking. Think about that for a moment. Our thoughts can lift us up and bring us joy and laughter and ease and grace. And our thoughts, the stories, the things we keep playing in our mind can do what? Just the opposite. Just the opposite. And being able to catch ourselves, especially when the story going through our mind or the thought going through our mind is one that is not uplifting and may not even be true, to stop ourselves and say, it's just a thought. Because really it is. Stop and think about that for just a moment. It's just a thought. A little electrical kind of thing going on in the apparatus of the brain. It's just a thought. Can drive us crazy, right? But when we catch it, we can change it. When we catch it, we can change it. Frank writes, stories are a way we find meaning, but rarely a single meaning. Usually there are layers of meaning. Maybe things are this way, but maybe they're not. This is where don't know can help us understand ourselves and each other better. When we are not so fixed in our views, stories can take us on a journey past plot lines or even facts to reveal a truth that we may have missed when we were only looking with our ordinary minds. The don't know mind also allows us, I think, to feel our way into new situations. Nod your head if you are someone that identifies as someone that really uses your mind a lot. Nod your head if you're that. Okay. For those of us who really use our reasoning mind a lot to figure things out, we probably, whenever we are faced with a life change, a phase change, something big and significant, our minds, as brilliant and wonderful as they are, probably go into overdrive. The practice for us in that is not to feel bad about it, but to remind ourselves that there is another way of dealing with whatever it is before us, whatever decision we need to make, that quiets the mind a little bit, or at least puts it over here for the time being, so that we can open up to possibilities that our thinking mind may never be able to get us to. I remember so vividly a couple of years ago, after my father had passed, and my brother and sister and I were in conversations with my mom about what to do with the home that she and my father had in Virginia. And there comes a point, if you live enough years, that you begin to say, maybe I don't want to live in this house and have all of the responsibilities of this house all by myself. Maybe as I'm approaching, my latter years in my 80s and 90s, I need to make a change. And I remember the many conversations I would have with my mom when she was still in Virginia, we here, on those morning walks. And he said, Mom, maybe you can't think your way through this. Maybe you need to live your way through this. Maybe the answer could be that you do eventually sell the house and that you do spend time with my brother and my sister and me. But Mom, you're probably not going to be able to figure it out up here. Mom, it's a living into the experience. And the living into the experience gives us access to, I don't know if it's just information or what, but it gives us access to something that the mind alone cannot touch. Does that make sense? And so there are probably situations that come up in all of our lives where, as good as our mind may be, or our education may be, or the way we use AI to figure stuff out may be, that we may have to quiet that and cultivate the spaciousness. It's a beautiful word. The spaciousness of the don't know mind that says, all right, I'm going to let my body take me into this. I'm going to let myself ease into and live into this, trusting. That's a big word. Trusting that as I do, it's going to become clear to me what is mine to do. I always know what I need to know when I need to know it. Getting to the when I need to know it part may not be through the reasoning mind. It may be through the don't know mind that carries the body into the lived experience. And that is what then answers the question, what is mine to do? What is yours to do? What is the right course of action? As I begin to wrap this up, I'm inclined to ask you just to take a moment to kind of check in with yourself. And, we've journeyed together over these 5 invitations, and personally I think it's a brilliant body of work. Very simple ideas, very easy to remember, and I like stuff like that. As we think about those 5 invitations, the don't know mind, the cultivating the open mind, the not waiting, the bringing our whole self into the experience. As we think about each of the different invitations that we have journeyed through, is there one that speaks to you more than the other? And sometimes the way that insight or intuition can work, I think it can work in one of 2 ways. You may find that as I ask that question and you kind of flip through those 5 invitations, that clearly there's one that just really stuck with you because it resonates with you. You felt it in your body, it's easy for you to remember it. Or it can sometimes be the one that you resisted the most. The one you resisted the most. I remember a turning point in my own spiritual journey came when I was willing to look at the things that I argued with in my mind, the things that my minister would say from the platform, or things I would read from spiritual authors that I would argue with. And I used to make the other wrong. But as something clicked, there was a pivot, and I looked, I said, maybe the resistance is because there's a deeper way I need to look at this. Maybe this is really holding a gem of truth that is exactly the thing I need to look at. And it became a very, very powerful turning point. So take just a moment to think about, what is it from this time that we've spent together that just really, really speaks to you? Is it the idea, don't wait? Is it the idea to welcome everything, to push nothing away? Is it the idea of bringing your whole self into your life experience? Is it the idea of finding a place of rest in the middle of the fullness and busyness of your life? Is it this idea of cultivating don't know mind, of spaciousness, and letting more of the answer come to you than trying to race and make it happen? Trust whatever came to you when I posed that question. Maybe write it down on one of the note cards in front of you, and consider it a gift from your own spirit, your own soul. Namaste.